You're listening to the Healing from CPTSD podcast. My name is Justin Vanderwind, and I am your host. In today's episode, I'm going to be talking about therapeutic flashbacks and how gradually exposing ourselves to them over time will allow us to free ourselves from the inner prison of toxic shame and anxiety. If you haven't done so already, be sure to visit our website at healingfromcptsd.com and sign up on our email list for regular updates, as well as a free weekly newsletter. While you're at it, check out our new YouTube channel and subscribe for regular video content. If you're interested in taking your life back from CPTSD and narcissistic abuse, the Healing from CPTSD course is now available on our YouTube channel completely free of charge. This course is some of the best tools and strategies for understanding and overcoming CPTSD in your life. Feel free to check it out. And if you feel inclined to share your story at all or talk about your experiences dealing with CPTSD or narcissistic abuse with me on the podcast, I would love to have you on the show sometime. Just shoot me an email at justin@healingfromcptsd.com and we can set something up. All links will be in the description below. All right, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Healing from CPTSD. My name is Justin Vanderwind, and I am your host. So today is actually kind of one of my favorite topics as it relates to CPTSD, and it's all about therapeutic flashbacks, as you can see from the title of this episode here. Some of you might be familiar with what therapeutic flashbacks are, some of you may not, but we're going to be talking all about therapeutic flashbacks today, and more importantly, their importance in healing from CPTSD. This is honestly, it's the key. The main key of healing from CPTSD is everything we cover is important, but therapeutic flashbacks, gradually exposing yourself to things that make you uncomfortable or either A, do trigger emotional flashbacks, or B, you're concerned that something might trigger an emotional flashback. Exposing yourself to those things gradually is how you're going to sort of free yourself from that inner prison of not only anxiety and shame, but the emotional flashbacks themselves. And so, that and learning how to have open and authentic emotional connections with other human beings, whether it's an intimate relationship or a friendship or a therapist, just anybody you can actually just be real with, as they say, open up and share maybe, things you're uncomfortable about, or just be open and honest, right? And do so in a way that's authentic and real. And, because doing that, right, is what triggers a lot of social anxiety and emotional flashbacks in us. Those of us who suffer from CPTSD, mostly, that's what we're mostly afraid of, is connecting or opening ourselves up to potentially, not only potentially be hurt again, but to potentially experience an emotional flashback. This is the key of what plagues us throughout our lives with CPTSD. Is it's not, when we do experience emotional flashbacks, they can be quite debilitating and really uncomfortable, also energetically draining. And so we start to do things, or rather avoid doing things that either, again, will trigger an emotional flashback, or that we're afraid will trigger an emotional flashback, right? And for a lot of us, and this includes myself, it gets to the point where you just kind of, it's like everything can trigger an emotional flashback in life. So this is why so many of us are it's so debilitating, and we have such a difficult time functioning. This is the core of why we have such a difficult time functioning, because any situation where we're exposed in any way, which includes school, which includes work, which includes any, intimate relationships, even friendships, even parties, even social engagements, all of it. It's all hard for those of us with CPT. That's what a lot of people don't understand. Forget about parties. Some people don't like to go to parties because they have social anxiety. But those of us with CPTSD, anything involving not only other people, but really what it is anything where we may be exposed in any way. And that's the key. That's what we're really afraid of. We're really afraid of being exposed, and we don't even really realize it consciously until we learn consciously about emotional flashbacks and stuff like that. I certainly didn't know what was going on. And a lot, with me growing up, and a lot of people said, well, you just got to get out there and, open yourself up. And there's some truth to that, but the truth is, depending on what you do, to open up, quote unquote, it could either A, trigger an emotional flashback, or B, re-traumatize somebody. And the thing is most people don't even know what emotional flashbacks are, let alone how to spot one happening in someone else and then help them to move through it. So those people is, because those people that are saying those things, like, you just got to get out there, they don't understand what you're dealing with, right? Emotional flashbacks is way beyond just social anxiety. By the way, those of us with CPTSD, we deal with both the emotional flashbacks and the social anxiety. So, it's a lot. So it's the truth is, it becomes so draining that we avoid a lot of stuff, and we can become extremely isolated, right? That was me for sure. I still enjoy my alone time, but the therapeutic flashbacks are really, probably the least popular topic to talk about as it relates to healing from CPTSD, because it's kind of like going to the gym for people with CPTSD. But it's the real way to overcome the flashbacks, to get yourself to a place where the flashbacks either don't happen anymore at all, or where the emotional flashbacks are minimal, or that you can move through them relatively easily. That's the place where I'm at now. So when I say I'm largely basically healed from CPTSD, what I mean is, even if something triggers an emotional flashback within me, or there's some anxiety or something, I can move through it. I can spot it and soothe myself and move through it and get through it much faster, so that I can live my life. You know what I mean? That's what I mean. It doesn't mean that, like, because unfortunately, it is sort of a certain degree of kind of like permanent damage, right? So, that's what it means. My emotional flashbacks are, I don't know. I don't think I've had them. I can't remember the last time I had one, because I've exposed myself to so much stuff, which we'll go through here in this episode. So essentially, I mean, I've already kind of covered it in that summary, but essentially, therapeutic flashbacks are gradually, consciously and gradually exposing yourself to different things and situations that cause you anxiety or cause you emotional flashbacks, and then, like, moving through them sort of emotionally, right? In other words, it's kind of like facing your fears, but for those of us with CPTSD, you got to start out much. I mean, even just going to this, for some people, just going to the store or something is intense, right? Just being around other people, or like walking up to someone and saying hello, or something like that. It can be really hard. So that might be a place where you start. I mean, that's, you just say hi, it's like, okay, today I'm going to do a therapeutic flashback. I'm going to go to the store and just say hi, say hi to the cashier or something, or just anything that's where you're kind of like opening up and being a little bit vulnerable, even though it might seem silly for a lot of people. That's an example of an emotional flashback. And then when you experience that anxiety and pain, from either having a baby emotional flashback, or the fear of it, you'll move through it. You'll alleviate any toxic shame that's going on inside you. And so what happens consequently as you move through that is you feel a lot better. You'll feel like lighter and a little more open and happier. And that's what's going on. You've kind of like successfully moved through, and your brain has been rewired like a little bit, like, oh man, like that situation was not nearly as bad or scary as we thought. So now, the anxiety is going to decrease a bit. The intensity of the emotional flashbacks are going to start decreasing. And really what it is just, doing different things to open yourself up more and more. Obviously, a lot of us don't want to do it. But the things I did, the thing is I just couldn't take being in the prison of CPTSD anymore. I just had to get out of it. And, so, I've mentioned this many times, but I've gone to, therapists and stuff, but, workshops, the 12-step programs were huge. 12-step programs are a great way to practice therapeutic flashbacks, because just going to those things is a little nerve-wracking, right? Even if you don't speak up and say anything, and then you get a chance to be like vulnerable and open with like a bunch of people all in one shot. But the great thing is those people are there. A lot of them probably might have CPTSD also for what they've had to go through in their lives, so they get it. But it's a great way to be open and vulnerable about anything, and practice safe therapeutic flashbacks in a safe environment where people aren't going to be talking over you or shutting you down or critiquing you or anything like that. And that's what we really need. So it's kind of like group therapy, but I highly recommend them. I don't even care what one you go to, right? Like even if, there's AA, there's all kinds of them, but they're all, they all follow the same basic, the steps and the formula and everything. They're great. They're cheap. They're easy to go to. And it's a great way to experience I always felt great. And a lot of times I was too scared to say anything, but I still felt better just going, right? Like it's okay to take even that level of a baby step where it's like, okay, I'm just going to go to this meeting. Because you at least have to introduce yourself, right? Like you go around the circle, even that's like, oh my God, like I'm exposed, and my heart's like pounding. I don't know if that's like that for everybody in the room, but for me, it was like, whew. And sometimes like just speaking and sharing, like you're in a safe space, but your brain doesn't really know that. It doesn't know. It hasn't experienced that really, being safe and open at the same time. But, so I would share, here and there, and afterwards I would feel so much better. I mean, everyone's going to feel better because being open and vulnerable for anyone kind of alleviates a lot of that toxic shame, which is a lot of that is why so many people like suffer with different addictions and stuff, because the addictions, kind of like there's a chemical component to addiction, obviously, but there's also sort of that emotional component of like kind of making you feel a little better for brief periods of time, right? That's what alcohol and drugs are all about. But when you alleviate that toxic shame and you get that connection, that genuine emotional connection, that's when it becomes easier to overcome any addiction, which is why 12-step programs are so successful for so many people, because a large part of the recovery process are those meetings, just going and sharing and being vulnerable around other people. You're getting that emotional connection. Even with, it's crazy. It's like, it could be just strangers, like people you don't even know. You don't know them, but you do know them because you guys struggle with a similar thing. And, that's a huge reason why they're so successful. So I highly recommend them. You can do it with, again, just, you don't have to go out to a club or anything like that or do anything crazy. You also want to, open up and be vulnerable, but, make sure you do it with safe people, that are going to understand you at the same time. And the more you do this stuff, the more you open yourself up to little baby emotional flashbacks or little mini panic attacks or like extreme anxiety, you'll feel better and the anxiety will decrease and the intensity of emotional flashbacks around certain issues will decrease as well. And this is why I'm always talking about assertiveness and effective communication, because this is the best way to be open and vulnerable with anyone at all times. But also, it's like you're vulnerable, but also it gives you kind of like an inner strength at the same time, right? Like if you practice assertiveness and effective communication that's healthy, you're empowering yourself, and you have, your confidence rises as far as any social situation that might, require you to, set some boundaries or something else, or just dealing with people. It becomes less anxiety producing to be in social situations, because you'll know that you'll be able to take care of yourself no matter what arises, right? And that includes being around, safe people. If somebody's doing something that's not making you feel comfortable or something, you can say something or just go away from that person and go be around people that value you and respect you. So that's what therapeutic flashbacks really are. And really that's kind of like the core of healing from CPTSD. If you can do this and just like commit to that, you'll be amazed how much progress you'll make, but also how much better you'll feel just in general inside yourself, whether you're with other people or not. So that's what I recommend. Now, I did go not only to those 12-step programs, but those really intensive workshops. And, I've mentioned them a couple times here and there. I don't think I would have gone back in. I wouldn't have gone in there now, knowing what I know now about CPTSD. But I went in there before I knew about CPTSD, and really, I just felt like I needed to open up more. But it was extreme for me anyway. They're really intense. You can make incredible progress in those things if those workshops, if you don't deal with CPTSD too much or you're able to handle it. I don't recommend them mostly for people with CPTSD because of how extreme they can be. But if you feel like you want to I'm only mentioning them because it is an incredible way to like open up and work through a lot of shame and experience openness with other human beings in a really powerful way, and also like in a relatively short period of time. So it can be done. Just understand it's kind of like more of it's like if you're in a more advanced class for something, or you're skiing on a more advanced slope, just I'm a big especially when it comes to CPTSD and recovering from it, I'm a big fan of taking it easy, step by step, baby steps. If you feel like you want to go to some Tony Robbins extravaganza or something like that, they can be helpful, but I would recommend doing a significant amount of work with a therapist, or 12-step groups, or some kind of group therapy, or the writing process that we were always talking about before trying to do something like that. It's really extreme. It's really extreme. I kind of can't believe I did it. But it all, the truth is, like, for me, all these experiences all added up over time to me being able to get back in touch with my core self and my heart, and to open up more and sort of melt that inner emotional ice, to move through social anxiety and emotional flashbacks when they happen. All that stuff I did I didn't know what therapeutic flashbacks were at the time, but that's essentially what I was doing, was exposing myself to things that made me really uncomfortable. It was just, I didn't realize the intensity. What I really needed, I think, is a therapist who understood CPTSD and trauma, right? That could walk me through all that. I think we all need that, but unfortunately, it seems to be so far and few between that those therapists actually exist. That obviously, as many of us know, a lot of therapists can kind of re-traumatize you, or even if they're not re-traumatizing you, it's like sometimes, for people like us, it's really hard to open up and trust without shutting down, right, and isolating again. So if you come across a therapist that doesn't, kind of makes you feel like you want to shut down again, that's not helpful either. You know what I mean? Or just isn't a very good therapist, or sometimes you find, narcissistic therapists too. So that's not helpful. So, that's why I'm a big fan of the pen and the pad, because you can expose yourself to emotional flashbacks, or even talking in front of the mirror. I've talked to a lot of CPTSD survivors who, even just talking in front of a mirror, like by themselves, they feel that that's overwhelming, and that's okay. But that overwhelming feeling, that feeling of anxiety or uncomfortableness, moving through that is what's a therapeutic flashback is, and it's what's going to get you to the other side and to feel better, right? It's really just like the emotional version of working out at the gym, right? It's like we have an inner mental resistance to working out at the gym or working out anywhere, because there is a certain aspect of working out or exercising that's kind of uncomfortable, right? But we all know, like, if you do it and then afterwards, how much better you feel, and that's physically with your muscles and your cardiovascular system. Well, the same thing applies to your emotional self, like doing some emotional exercise, and the writing process I put together here. You don't have to do, the process I put together, but, just writing in general, just straight up, just writing. Like, if something happens to you, it really upsets you or bothers you or traumatizes you, just simply writing about that event, and writing about what happened, writing about your feelings, and letting yourself be honest and open. Just doing that is incredibly powerful for healing, and for, it's a form of verbal ventilation where you're allowing yourself to really, write out, and that's how you process your feelings, right? And frankly, you're being vulnerable on the paper. But what's the other reason I really like it is because if you do it on your own, your brain knows you're safe. Like, you're able to be open and vulnerable in a safe. Because some of us, we just, there's some of us that just can't, open up in front of anybody, like a therapist or anything. So that's why the paper and the pen is my favorite, way to do it. And frankly, I'm telling you, you can do everything you need to do on the paper and the pen, with the pen and the paper. And then, when it comes to between that and practicing assertiveness and effective communication on your own in front of a mirror, that is largely how I overcame my CPTSD, and that carries out over into the world. Whether you're at work or you want to make new friends or new connections, you can do so much work on your own. I would argue all of it that you need to get out of it, because it's in these workshops. They're comprised of a lot of different kind of interactive exercises with people that are designed for everyone involved to be as open and vulnerable as they possibly can. And so essentially what's happening with all the exercises is you're just opening yourself up and being vulnerable in some way, shape, or form. And so I realized, and learning assertiveness and effective communication kind of happens in those groups. So I realized those were the key, like, essential components. So if you just extracted that, the assertiveness and effective communication and being vulnerable, even just on paper or with a safe enough person, a therapist or someone you trust, that alone, or the 12-step groups, that alone is enough to get you back, to heal, to process yourself, to move through emotional flashbacks. And of course, that's why I'm always talking about kind of like empowering yourself by learning things you never learned due to fear. Because doing all these things, which is in the course I put together, combined are the keys of what will help you, overcome CPTSD, but also expose you to therapeutic flashbacks at the same time. Sometimes, if you're writing, you might feel a little uncomfortable. That's good. That's a good sign. There's bad discomfort, but there's also good discomfort where you're growing, right? And so that's what that's all about. A lot of us want to suppress and, that's how the brain works, right? Any uncomfortable memories or anything, but it doesn't, they're causing problems by staying inside you and not being processed or looked at. So the writing is extremely helpful, and connecting with others and the practicing assertiveness and effective communication is how you're connecting with others, by opening up and expressing yourself. You're learning better communication skills. And the coolest part and that's why I like it so much, that's why I'm always talking about assertiveness and effective communication, is because you can literally practice opening up and talking all by yourself if you want to, right? Or with an empty chair or the mirror or whatever. And then you can go do, and then what'll happen is you'll be rewiring your brain as you're doing this stuff, and then just out in life, it'll just naturally happen, right? It's like if you're practicing martial arts by yourself with a one of those Wing Chun dummies or something, and then you're out in the world and somebody like throws a punch at you, you just know how to automatically kind of block it. Your reflexes are just automatically there. You can train by yourself for real world situations. So that's what this is all about. The course, everything we're talking about here is therapeutic flashbacks and exposing yourself to them gradually. So that you can, heal from the CPTSD and get your life back. But I'm telling you, they might be a little nerve-wracking, but I'm telling you, you feel so much better by going through them. You'll be like, oh my God, I feel so much better. I feel so much better. Like, you'll just feel better within yourself. I mean, for me, it's like, yeah, connecting with others is good and important and stuff. But the truth is, when you're connecting with someone, there's stuff that's happening inside of you at the same time, which is why it feels better. Well, you can do all that stuff for yourself internally without necessarily having to be around people or a therapist or 12-step groups or something. But, if you want to get started, just make a list. Like, make a list of things that make you a little bit uncomfortable. You don't have to, like, go ask somebody out on a date or something like that, although that might be triggering for certain people for sure. That's nerve-wracking for anybody, right? But just little things, like just make a list of little things you can do. Saying hi to someone at the grocery store, or maybe checking out a 12-step group, or going to some social, get together, like there's all kinds of meetups and stuff like that for all different kinds of hobbies and things, and it's really exposing yourself to other people that is what's going to be the best therapeutic flashbacks for you. And just kind of, you can do that if you want. And then the more you do it, the more confidence you'll gain, you'll feel better, and you'll be able to do more and more things that allow you to, expose yourself to things that used to be really uncomfortable, but now you can handle it, right? It's kind of like, again, going to the gym. Like you after a while, you get stronger and you can lift heavier and heavier weights. So that's what this is all about, the therapeutic flashbacks. I highly recommend them, and they're really the key to getting your life back from CPTSD. So, you don't have to, if you don't, Pete Walker always says, like, if any part of this book makes you feel uncomfortable, you don't have to worry about doing it. But, because there's the relational aspect of healing from CPTSD, but if you're uncomfortable with it, it's okay. But this is kind of like the way out, the way out of that sort of inner prison. and you can do it. And there's definitely safe enough people you can do it with, and you'll feel so much better, and you'll be freeing yourself from that inner prison at the same time. So I would recommend giving it a shot. Even the course, like, just notice any inner resistance, like anything that makes you a little uncomfortable, and then like go through it. At Tony Robbins events, you may be aware of this, but they have a lot of setups like this where you're exposing yourself to things that you're uncomfortable with, or that cause you fear. Well, there's one where people are actually like walking across hot coals. You don't have to go walk across hot coals, but it's all about like facing fears and sort of like alleviating that inner shame and fear by going through it, right? Well, it's the same thing with therapeutic flashbacks. You don't have to walk over a bed of coal, but maybe just do little things here and there that make you uncomfortable, or even just going out, like maybe going out for a walk or going to talk to somebody, just like friendly. I was doing like rideshare driving, and you talk to all kinds of people, so that's really helpful too, because you'll just get used to talking to people more. And it helps, but it helps you, right? Like, this isn't about becoming the most social person in the world. It's just about healing you so that you feel better, and so that you can get your life back, and you're not sort of plagued with that constant like inner anxiety, and those heavy feelings of deep shame and all that stuff, and trapped by those emotional flashbacks. The more you do the therapeutic flashbacks, the more the emotional flashbacks will decrease in intensity, and then you'll be free for them. So that's why they're so important to do. So I think that's pretty much what I wanted to talk to you today about as far as the therapeutic flashbacks are concerned. You don't have to do any of this if you don't feel comfortable with it, but if you do a little bit of it, now at least you know what to do. Anything that makes you a little emotionally uncomfortable or a little like anxious, sometimes is, not nothing dangerous, but it'll help you open up, and you'll be able to disengage yourself from those emotional flashbacks. I hope you guys are doing well, and I will see you in the next episode. Take care.